Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Jen, and this is Eat Your Damn Food. And today we have Morgan Herrick with us. And I always love talking with Morgan.
Mm.
I get so much, Morgan, from you, such a wise soul on this planet. And so grateful to have you as part of the Fab team now. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
Mhm. So we could talk about so many things, Morgan, right? And what I'd really love to talk about is to hear a little more of your story. And Morgan, you and I do our family groups for FAB that we hold once a month for loved ones. And the feedback we get a lot of times from the loved ones is how much they benefit from hearing not just Morgan, the professional who loves to talk about eating disorder treatment, which is so important, but people love to hear about your story because you really know from the inside out what it takes to recover.
Mm.
And I always say that no two people recover exactly the same, but I do think you have so much to share with people about what that was like for you. And so I want to kind of go a little bit ways back, but a question we get from people frequently is, how did you even know you had an eating disorder? That's a question people ask us frequently when they finally get to us or like what was going on with you with any symptoms or struggles in the beginning?
Yeah, so I haven't thought about this. I haven't gone way back in a while, but
Uh-huh.
I would say, honestly, I didn't know I had an eating disorder for a very long time. It started the symptoms when I was like 8 years old. I would start going on these fruit and veggie diets, and that's all I would eat for weeks, fruits and veggies. And I remember my dad would be like, "That's not good. Like, that's not very healthy." And I
Mhm.
was just like, "No, but I need to lose weight," when I didn't. So it started very young.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I was in college, undergrad, I got to a point where I was like, I think I need help. I was like hiding food, I was binging, restricting, exercising for hours a day. It was really, really unhealthy. And I was like, I think I need help. And so I kind of Googled it, I think, and I was like, do I have an eating disorder? But all
Mhm.
that came up for me at that point, or what I read at least, was about anorexia and you had to be underweight. And so I thought I wasn't sick enough because I didn't look like I had an eating disorder from the outside. So that kept me from getting help for another couple years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Such an important point because so many people who struggle, they aren't always underweight,
right.
right? That's just for some people something that some people struggle with, but the majority of people struggle and nobody is really noticing maybe
Mhm.
because they're not necessarily showing it in that way. But I'm sure there were other signs and symptoms and just like you Googled and were like, this is what popped up, and it's like, ooh, I don't fit that. And then that even prevented you from getting help. What's even though in like undergrad, what had you start to say to yourself, even though Google wasn't giving you the right answers, but like what had you start saying, I think I really need help? Like you were starting to get ready, but like what were you feeling or the behaviors that are like, I'm gonna do this?
Yeah. I was feeling so lost and I felt like trapped in
Mm,
my obsessions with food and exercise and hatred towards my body. I was completely everything, my entire worth was based on my body, and my entire mood would be determined in the morning by how I felt about my body when I looked in the mirror. And I wouldn't go to the beach. I lived in Miami. I'm from New England, but I lived in Miami for 4 years, and I wouldn't go to the beach because I didn't want to be in a bathing suit. We had a pool on campus that I wouldn't go to. I wouldn't go to parties because I didn't like how my going out outfits looked like. Like it kept me from living my entire life um, in so many ways. And it just, food and thoughts about my body just consumed my entire being. That's really how I knew.
Right. And that's kind of what ends up happening, right? It's like the eating disorder takes more and more and more, and life starts to shrink a lot of times. That's what I sort of hear you describing. And thank God you started saying, I think I need help. And I'm wondering, like you said, you went to Google.
Mhm.
Oh no, that wasn't so helpful. I'm not really seeing myself in what they're saying, but you didn't stop there. So, like, how did you end up starting to really get help for your eating disorder then?
So I did go to my mom because she's my person. She's and even she, knowing she knew me better than anyone else, she didn't know I had an eating disorder, which is really telling about how good I was at hiding it. And so I went to her and she helped me find a nutritionist, Amy Jaffe, actually, who I love. And I remember I had a friend in undergrad, and she told me, I don't even know if I told her I was struggling or if she just could see it. And she was just telling me about she started therapy and how great it was for her. And so I was like, what's the name of that therapist? So I started meeting with that therapist. And so I had a therapist and a nutritionist, and that was going well. And then something was still missing though. And so Amy Jaffe, my nutritionist, she told me about one of your programs that you had. And it was that community aspect that was the difference for me, knowing that I wasn't alone because I had been doing the eating disorder life since 8 years old on my own.
Mm, God, I have to tell you, it breaks my little heart thinking about Morgan, you as
Me
adorable
too.
age, right? And thinking about like how that got into your brain, like something was wrong and I have to fix it. And sometimes it really has us go into like what we kind of call this diet matrix, and it's hard to then find your way out. Sometimes we go deeper and deeper, and that's some of what I heard. And thank God you did go to your mom, and even though she didn't know, and like you were saying, you were able to even hide it from your person. And
Mhm.
that's such a classic, right, eating disorder story because these eating disorders are so secretive.
Mhm.
Gosh, even at the treatment center where where I worked for, I always say the first half of my career, like sometimes when clients got out of the treatment center, they'd say, "Okay, Dr. Jen, we're going to tell you now all the things we were doing there, like under your noses," right? They were like, there was this one plant outside of the director's office, and like there was contraband in the plant. I was like, okay, this is like a 24-hour treatment center, and they would start like kind of telling the little tricks, but this is how good, right? That eating disorder part gets so good at hiding. So thank God for your mom that she started helping you connect.
Yeah.
And I know, Morgan, there's probably so many things that made such a difference for you. And I know you're such a proponent of people getting healing in all kinds of ways in this holistic way. And I know body image is something you have really contributed to the fab space of making sure we talk to our people about body image. But like, if you just gave like a couple of the things that really made such a big difference for your own recovery and people listening, what would you say to tell people about some of those things that really helped you and maybe would help somebody who's hearing this?
Yeah. The biggest one I would say, because for me, like the food was just a symptom of my body image struggles, how I felt about my body, fear of gaining weight. And so beginning to shift from focusing on how my body looked to focusing on how my body felt. That was the biggest thing for me. So instead of focusing on like the way I looked in the mirror, the way I looked in my clothes, I started focusing on like my energy level, like how I felt as I was starting to eat more, like um, how my clothes felt on me rather than how they looked. If I would go shopping, like focusing on did it feel comfortable rather than does it make me look skinny. Um,
Mhm.
so that was a big one for me.
Mm, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And I know how much you have helped so many people around this piece with body image. And we even in Fab use that kind of body image scale that you created. And I think that really can be so helpful, right? Because I think starting to shift our relationship from like, what do I look like in appearance versus like the feeling, it really is that's a process, right? That's a journey, and it might be like a lifelong journey, right? Because bodies don't stay the same, right? They change all the time. And we're trying to keep adjusting to how do we start accepting and loving and having compassion for this thing that's so important to get us through the world. So um, I do want to fast forward a little bit because something we talk about a lot in Fab is healing from this eating disorder, finding freedom so you really can be living your joyful, fulfilling life. And Morgan, in the time I've known you, like I just see your life getting better and better
Mhm.
and better. And I know you have new furry babies in your life. You also just had a big milestone that happened. I wonder if you would just share like the gifts of recovery, like, n- not just also what you've gotten, but like how you feel and what life is like now. Because when you're climbing this mountain of recovery and it feels so arduous, it's like sometimes people wonder, is this really worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, so many amazing things. And it's funny because I actually remember sitting in my nutritionist's office like 6 months into recovery and still feeling like I don't think this is possible. Like I think I'm going to be trapped in this for the rest of my life. But now fast forward and like I got my degree in college, which I didn't know if I was gonna have to drop out. I didn't know, but somehow I did it. And then I got my master's, and then I started my own business. I just got engaged to my person, my amazing fiance. I have 5 animals that I take care of. I just love animals, 3 dogs and 2 cats, and I'm able to take care of them because I'm taking care of myself. And I just feel I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I truly am. I feel great. My energy level is great. I'm just taking care of myself in so many ways, and I'm able to travel the world. Like, there's so many things I could say about how much I have bloomed.
Yeah.
And I have no like, it might sound like I'm bragging, but I have no problem because I worked so hard to get here.
Yeah, because it does take work, right? It does take work to do recovery, but like what you're saying is it's so worth it.
Mhm.
And, if we talked about how life was shrinking at one point when the eating disorder was at its height, like now what we can hear is the expansion of your life that continues. And the other thing I know about you, Morgan, is you're still always doing your work, right? And I think that's also a beautiful thing about our team. Like we're always doing our work because the work doesn't stop, does it?
No, it does not.
Mm, oh. Well, Morgan, I know it's been a bit of a long day, and you still chose to be here to show up. And, one of our Morganisms is to show up and do the work when nobody's watching, which is such an important thing. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the ways you make such a difference for people in your life and how much of a difference you make for me in my life. You really do. It's like a joy to be with you, Morgan.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.